Uh, well, Yaron, you know that I've been talking with some of the scholars of the Ayn Rand Institute about different subjects, and there is one thing that intrigues me about free will, and of course, the new research on neuroscience and biology,
Yeah.
and this debate on how free are we really, if we are, and also evolutionary psychology, because Ayn Rand always said objectivism is all about observing reality as it is, and instead of denying it, accept it and try to make your life in a very coherent way according to what reality shows you.
Sure.
So if reality and these new scientific findings are showing us, something different, how can objectivism apply these new findings or reject them? And I want to start with an exercise.
Maybe I can say something generally about
course.
it, and then we'll get into some of the particulars. Absolutely. So scientific knowledge is important, and we have to be able to evaluate it and see whether our ideas hold up in the face of new knowledge. But this is the challenge, particularly in the world we live in today, which I think not only is corrupt in its politics, and we share our understanding of the corruption in politics, but is also corrupt, I think, in its philosophy, and I think that affects a lot of the science. I think one has to be wary of definitive statements in the sciences today, particularly in young sciences, in new sciences. If you look at neurobiology, which is a fascinating field, and there's a lot of new information in new science there, it's not the science I'm worried about, it's the way they interpret it.
Right.
And the interpretation is more philosophy than it is actually science. And I am suspicious of a lot of the so-called conclusions that the philosophers of science and scientists and social thinkers are coming to based on the neurobiological evidence. And certainly that is the case, I think, with evolutionary psychology. Evolutionary psychology is very philosophical in the sense that it's dealing with philosophical concepts. It's assuming that we evolved ideas, we evolved inclinations, we evolved all kinds of things that I don't think the scientists are very clear on. For example, what is the difference between an idea, an emotion, an inclination, temperament, and all these other things that describe, human behavior in one way or the other? Can they clearly define all those things? Can they then distinctly say this is genetic and this is not?
Exactly.
And none of them even make the attempt. So when I read it, I go, they're not even trying to distinguish these different features. They assume ideas are just like emotions, are just like inclinations, and just like temperament. And that is clearly not true. Ideas are not something we're born with. Ideas are something you have to use your reason in order to create. When you're a baby, you don't know what a chair is. You have to create, in a sense, you have to integrate to bring about the concept of chair, right? That is something that's an achievement, right? It's something that you have to actually make an effort to do, and the more abstract concepts, the effort is greater. So this idea that you can evolve concepts is just wrong. Now, where is the evolution? Our emotions, as I think I understand it, and I think a lot of psychology understands it, are responses, automatic responses to conclusions and thinking that we have done in the past. Well, again, thinking is not evolved, so our emotions evolved. I doubt it. I don't think they are. So then we're left with inclinations and temperament. Okay, I'm willing to accept that there's some interesting science about these things. But if it's really just that, then it's a lot less than what is being claimed today by these scientists. So I'm wary. I don't think they have a clear understanding of what it is they're even dealing with. It's a very young science.
Yeah.
And I think in 50 years we'll have a much better understanding of these things. So let's not take what's written in popular books about this and say it's definitive, given how weak I think their analysis is, their philosophical analysis is, and then how young the science actually is. So I think, let's gain the knowledge, but let's be careful about how we interpret it. And for example, on the issue of free will, and I know you've talked to others about free will. Free will is directly observable. When I look at this and I see a glass of water, it's irrelevant in a sense what science says, right?
Yeah.
This is a glass, and it's, maybe it's not water, and the science tells me it's poison or something. But my senses observe something. That is the reality. And the science explains it. The science can explain, it's made of molecules, and it has this shape because of the way it was formed. The same with free will. Free will is directly observable. Science cannot disprove that it exists. It can one day maybe explain it, but it cannot disprove it.
Well, that is the thing. I mean, that corruption that you talk about in the philosophical world that is also poisoning the way that science is interpreted is something that, for example, I haven't read the other works of Steven Pinker, but I read The Blank Slate.
Sure.
And he actually points this out. He says, in one spectrum, the left side of philosophy and politics does not want us to talk about biology, genetics, because for them this sounds like these will be justifications of racism, Nazism, sexism, attempting to the rights of minorities. And then in the right-wing, more conservative side of the spectrum, they also don't want to learn about these new findings because it attempts against their religion. Right? So he does recognize the corruption that the philosophical world is going through. And he also, blames relativists. He said, in the scientific study of politically charged topics such as race, gender, violence, and social organization, appealing to facts or the truth in connection with these topics is just as ruse, the relatives say, because there is no truth in the sense of an objective yardstick independent of cultural and political presuppositions. And he does blame this. Like, when I read Pinker, for example, he condemns communism. He does... he makes a very interesting case of why the individual mind should be free. In some senses, you say, okay, the guy gets it. In others, and I know that in other books, he goes like, no, there's no free will.
Well, I think in The Blank Slate, he gets to the no free will, and I know, based on other people who've read it, so I don't have direct experience with it. But yes, I mean, Steven Pinker is a contradiction. He holds these contradictions. On one hand, he's anti-communist, obviously, and he's anti kind of radical leftist views on many issues. On the other hand, he doesn't want capitalism. He wants kind of, we need to regulate capitalism, we need to control capitalism, so he's for a mixed economy. He's a centrist when it comes to politics. He wants many, many more regulations and controls than we would want. He wants redistribution of wealth. He believes redistribution of wealth is necessary and moral. He's very conventional when it comes to his morality. In many respects, it's kind of funny that he's very Christian in his morality in spite of being an atheist. He still holds the same kind of sacrificial, live for others type of moral code. And yet, he's very smart, and he gets a lot of things right. And you see among certain intellectuals of the center-left a certain understanding of the role of reason, the role of the mind, the role of individuals, the role of markets, but they're not willing to go all the way. And what really undercuts them, and this is tragic, him and Sam Harris and many others, is that they don't really believe in free will. They don't really believe that it's individuals making choices. And that kind of undercuts the whole argument, because if you don't believe in free will, why are we even having the conversation, right? Why are we trying to convince anybody? Why are we debating? And I don't think reason and rationality mean anything without free will. Reason is something you have to bring forth. You have to engage your mind with. So, again, because I haven't read the book, I don't want to, and he's obviously, Pinker's not here to defend himself, but it's a challenge among a lot of modern intellectuals. And I think that one of the biggest issues of the day is this issue of free will. It's interesting, Ankar Ghate did an interview with Dave Rubin on free will, and it's one of the best viewed videos we've ever made. And the reason is, I think this is an issue that young people are really struggling with, because there's so many modern intellectuals are saying, no, there's no free will because science can't explain it.
Right.
And yet, but if there's no free will, what's the point? And I know there's free will because I can see it when I introspect, that there's real angst, there's real confusion about these issues. And I think it's the foundation of all knowledge is that we have the capacity to engage our mind, to choose to think.
But then something is going on, and it shouldn't be, and it should be pointed out, because, for example, you've read other books of Pinker.
Sure.
I've only read The Blank Slate. He starts saying this is not going to be one of those books that says that everything is genetic, because it isn't. The environment is just as important as the genes. The things children experience while they're growing up are just as important as the things that they're born with.
Yeah, but they see that's the cop-out, right? That's terrible. Why is that terrible? So there are two theories in psychology. You're determined by your genes,
Yeah.
or you're determined by your environment.
Yeah.
And the real radicals, like Steven Pinker, say you're determined by both.
By both, yeah.
But you're still determined. The most important point about who you are and what you are is this third option, which is the choices you make, the decisions you make. But that never comes up, right? So he says both are influencing, and I'm saying, yeah, both have an influence. But the thing that really makes you who you are the choices you make given the genes that you have, given that the environment you were born into.
Right.
What do you do with it? What do you choose to engage your mind, to focus your mind, to think, to make choices, to take responsibility? Or do you choose to drift through life and to let the environment and your genes just dictate what you do, or to let other people dictate what you do? So the most important characteristics in psychology of what you turn out to be is you.
Of course, but
it's not, of course, because it's not there.
No, I know. He makes a case where I think it's a trinity for him. It's a little bit the environment, a little bit genetics. We still don't know how much you can actually decide. And I think that the room for confusion comes from the fact that, for instance, genetically now we know that your sexual desires and your sexual attractions are genetic. It's not that homosexuals choose to be homosexuals, is that the way they are coded in their DNA will make them more attracted to people of their same sex.
So, there's an element of truth to that,
Okay.
but I also think we don't know a lot. Again,
exactly.
we're overstating the case.
Exactly.
There's a lot about sexual desire, even among heterosexuals,
Yeah, of
that we
course.
don't understand. And a lot of it still has to do with choices that you make, both as a young person growing up and as an adult, that determine what you're attracted to sexually and what you're not attracted to sexually, even among heterosexuals. What kind of woman am I attracted to? That's not genetically programmed into me. That is a function of my ideas, and indeed, when my ideas change, the type of woman I'm attracted to changes. It really does. So it's not, this whole idea of coding is way, way overstated in my view, and the environmental impact is way, way overstated. I know it from personal experience, because my environment, really, I grew up in a place that taught you collectivism. It was given to you with your mother's milk. It was in the songs. It was in the stories. It was in the school books. It was everywhere. The whole environment was collectivistic, tribalistic, driving you. And I bought it. When I was 14, 15, 16, I was 100%. I was just waiting for the grenade so I could jump and sacrifice my life for the sake of the collective, right? For my tribe, the Jewish tribe as it happens to be. And I believed it, and it was emotionally, it was completely integrated into who I was. And then I read Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God, this is nonsense. This is wrong. My life is mine. And it took me a long time to disentangle all that collectivism out of my soul, out of my emotions, out of everything. But, maybe it took 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But at some point, none of that collectivistic stuff meant anything to me. All those emotions were gone. I used to get tears in my eyes when the Israeli flag would go up. I don't anymore, right? So you can change your emotions, your inclinations, all these things that if you read some of these books, you would think is just programmed into us.
Okay.
When you change your ideas, these things change. And I think that's true of sexual attraction. I think it's true of a lot of things. Now, certainly some stuff is coded into us, no question. But what is it? How impactful is it that science is still in its infancy, and unfortunately, people like Steven Pinker and others overstate the case, and it's a great story. They tell great stories about it, and it gets them a lot of attention, and good for them. They're doing it, but I don't think it's science. I think it's too early to say. And what they discount, and they discount dramatically, is choice, ideas.
Right.
I mean, ideas change you emotionally. they change what you value and what you don't value.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that, I'm sure you know that. You
Yeah.
went through changes in how you viewed the world, and that changes partially who you're attracted to sexually.
Yeah, of course. That I agree. Maybe not in the sense of passing from heterosexual to gay.
Yeah, I think
but
that's right.
But what you value in people
Yes.
and like
Yeah.
how they are, how they behave.
But that's huge.
Yeah, of course it is. But the thing is, I think it's so hard to make this case because now people are like, wait a minute, maybe I just don't inherit the color of my eyes from my parents. What if I am inheriting other things? Not only bad things, but also talents. Because there is no way of defining what is genetic from what, because this is a very young science, as you say, there is room for a lot of confusion.
But what is absolutely clear and really important is your ideas are not inherited.
Of course.
Your moral character is not inherited.
Yes.
The values and virtues that you have are not inherited. And at the end, because we can see emotions change with ideas, your emotions are not. If we can agree on that.
Of course, I agree with that.
Then that makes all the difference, because now it's still your. See, if we buy into determinism, and I know a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the free market world who are trying to integrate evolutionary psychology in ways that I think are very harmful. If we agree that there's no free will, then there's no moral responsibility. Then it doesn't really matter what political system we live under in the end of the day, because we're just determined to live under whatever political system we're determined to live under. So it's really important that people know that they have moral agency, that they decide their values and virtues, that they decide the direction of their life, and they are responsible for the choices that they make in their own lives, and therefore they're responsible for the political system that they have, and that the politician is responsible for the political system they have. We can't let anybody off the hook because they had bad genes or because they had a bad environment. That's no excuse at the end of the day. You have to make decisions and choices for yourself, and that's what's so crucial.
But I think that these things should continue to be studied.
Absolutely.
I don't think that the left should ban it for the reasons or the conservative right like reject it, because I think this is part of knowing yourself, like Socrates said. I mean, for example, now you have the opportunity of knowing your ancestry. You can take a sample of your DNA. And in my case, I think that this is a great solution against racism. Because if everyone in the planet would take their DNA test to find out that we are all a genetic blender, exactly, then the points for nationalism or racism would just like tear down. Right?
I mean,
if you apply the right philosophy.
Yes, I wish I was benevolent, optimistic as you are. Because I think the roots of collectivism and tribalism are much deeper than just the DNA. But yes, I agree with you. We're ultimately all mutts, and it would be good for people to know that. And it'd be good for them to get that. But I think that they then find a different tribe. They identify based on another thing, because that urge to be tribal is ideological, it's intellectual, it's ideas again. And it's lazy.
You demonstrate it in human terms in your novel Atlas Shrugged. And let me start by quoting from a review of this novel Atlas Shrugged that appeared in Newsweek. It said that you are out to destroy almost every edifice in the contemporary American way of life, our Judeo-Christian religion, our modified government-regulated capitalism, our rule by the majority will. Other reviews have said that you scorn churches and the concept of God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes, I agree with the facts, but not the estimate of this criticism. Namely, if I am challenging the base of all these institutions, I'm challenging the moral code of altruism, the precept that man's moral duty is to live for others, that man must sacrifice himself to others, which is the present-day morality.
What do you mean by sacrifice himself for others? We're getting to the point.
One moment. Since I'm challenging the base, I necessarily would challenge the institutions, you name, which are a result of that morality.
All right.
And now what is self-sacrifice?
Yes, what is self-sacrifice? You say that you do not like the altruism by which we live. You like a certain kind of Ayn Randist selfishness.
I would say that I don't like is too weak a word. I consider it evil. And self-sacrifice is the precept that man needs to serve others in order to justify his existence, that his moral duty is to serve others. That is what most people believe today.
Well, yes, we're taught to feel concerned for our fellow man, to feel responsible for his welfare, to feel that we are, as religious people might put it, children under God and responsible one for the other. Now, why do you rebel? What's wrong with this philosophy?
But that is what, in fact, makes man a sacrificial animal. That man must work for others, concern himself with others, or be responsible for them. That is the role of a sacrificial object. I say that man is entitled to his own happiness and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he wish to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man should have self-esteem.
Using the super chat, and I noticed yesterday when I appealed for support for the show, many of you stepped forward and actually supported the show for the first time. So I'll do it again. Maybe we'll get some more today. If you like what you're hearing, if you appreciate what I'm doing, then I appreciate your support. Those of you who don't yet support the show, please take this opportunity. Go to yaronbrookshow.com/support or go to subscribestar.com, Yaron Brook Show, and make a kind of a monthly contribution to keep this going. I'm not sure when the next